I removed my armor. The Queen stared in shock at my battle scars. The starship glided silently through the violet clouds of the royal planet's atmosphere, leaving a faint trail of light behind it. Inside the bridge, the human warrior stood alone, gazing out at the sprawling city below. He had seen countless worlds, fought battles that would make most beings tremble, and returned scarred in body and mind. Yet for the first time in years, he felt the weight of curiosity pressing on him. What would the Queen think when she saw him? The city shimmered with crystal towers and golden streets, a testament to the Empire's glory. From above, it seemed peaceful, orderly, and untouchable. But the human knew better. He had faced chaos in its purest form, staring into the eyes of creatures that destroyed planets for sport. He had survived where many others had fallen. The scars on his body, hidden beneath layers of armor, told stories no one here would imagine. The starship's engines hummed as it descended toward the palace. Soldiers lined the landing platform, their alien armor glinting under the sun. Their eyes were wide as they saw him, a lone human walking calmly into a place that had never truly welcomed his kind. Whispers ran through the ranks. He survived the outer wars alone. Can he be trusted? The human's return changes everything. Inside the palace, the halls stretched endlessly, filled with luminous tapestries and the soft hum of energy flowing through the walls. The human moved steadily, his armor clanking lightly with each step. He noticed the subtle glances of the guards and courtiers alike. Many were curious, some fearful, and a few openly hostile. Yet he walked as if he belonged there, though he knew the truth. He was a stranger in this world. At the center of the palace stood the throne room, a massive chamber adorned with silver and crystal. The Queen waited there, seated upon a raised platform. Her presence was commanding. Every movement radiated authority and intelligence. When she looked at him, her eyes held a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. She had heard of his deeds, of course, the human who fought on distant worlds, who survived battles that decimated entire fleets. But seeing him in person was different. He stopped a few steps from her throne. "Your Highness," he said, bowing slightly. His voice was calm but firm, carrying the weight of someone who had seen life and death countless times. "I have returned as promised." The Queen studied him silently. "You have changed," she finally said, her tone steady but unreadable. "The human I expected was a story, a rumor, but you are real," he nodded. "Stories rarely capture the truth," he replied. "I have fought, I have survived, and I have come back to serve if the Empire will allow it." There was a brief silence. The courtiers exchanged uneasy glances. Some had feared the human's return, others had hoped for it. But now, seeing him face to face with his tall frame and silent strength, they were unsure what to feel. "Your armor," the Queen said, her voice softening slightly, "it hides more than your body, does it not?" He glanced down at the heavy plates. "Yes, Your Highness, it has kept me alive through wars you cannot imagine. But it also hides the truth of what I carry, scars, memories, and the weight of decisions I made." The Queen leaned forward slightly. "Then perhaps it is time to show the truth." Before he could respond, a sudden commotion echoed through the hall. A group of lower-ranking courtiers had gathered near the entrance, whispering urgently. One stepped forward, bowing low. "Your Highness, there are reports of unusual movements in the outer city. Scouts claim unknown ships are approaching the palace perimeter." The human's eyes narrowed. He had hoped for a peaceful return, but peace was rare in this empire, especially with him present. "I will handle it," he said, moving toward the door. "Send reinforcements to the gates. I will meet them." The Queen's eyes followed him. She had seen courage before, even in her own people, but something about this human was different. He did not seek glory, he sought duty. That alone commanded respect. Outside the palace, the wind carried the scent of burning metal and ozone. The human moved with ease, scanning the skies. From the horizon, small alien ships emerged, sleek and armed, but no match for a warrior who had survived battles against entire fleets. He took a deep breath, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline. Combat was a language he knew well, instinct guiding every move. He dropped to one knee, letting his scanners sweep the area. "They are fast but predictable," he muttered under his breath. Within moments, he formulated a plan. Using the city's terrain, he would funnel the attackers into narrow corridors where their numbers counted for little. The human was not just strong, he was smart, a strategist honed by years of survival. The first wave of attackers appeared, sleek ships glinting under the twin suns. Lasers streaked through the sky, but the human's timing was precise. He dodged, rolled, and countered, guiding them into traps set before they even realized. Within minutes, several ships were disabled, forced to retreat or crash into the outskirts of the city. The palace guards arrived shortly after, astonished at the efficiency of the humans' tactics. "I have not seen skill like this," one whispered, shaking his head. "He is not merely a fighter, he is a master." Back inside the throne room, the queen watched through her observation lens, her expression unreadable. "So the rumors were true," she said softly. "The human is exceptional." When the last of the attackers had fled, the human returned to the throne room, his armor lightly scorched but intact. "They underestimated the city," he said simply, "and they will think twice before approaching again." The queen rose from her throne, her eyes finally locking onto his. "You carry more than physical strength," she said. "I can feel it in your presence, your choices, your silence. There is history behind those eyes, human. I want to know it." He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "It is not easy to tell, Your Highness. The battles I fought, they left marks deeper than any wound. Some scars are not visible to the eye." The queen stepped closer, her curiosity evident. "Then perhaps it is time to show them," she said. "If you trust me, remove the armor that hides you. Let me see the human behind the warrior." He looked down at the plates, the heavy metal that had protected him for so many years. Each dent, scratch, and burn told a story of survival. Taking a deep breath, he began to remove the armor piece by piece. The courtiers gasped quietly, unsure if this was a ceremonial act or something more. As the last piece fell away, the scars were revealed. Long, jagged lines across his chest and arms, burns from alien weapons, and markings that spoke of countless close calls with death. His skin bore the story of a life fought at the edge of the galaxy, of victories hard-won and sacrifices made. The queen's eyes widened in shock. "By the stars," she whispered, "you carry the history of wars we cannot imagine." He bowed his head slightly. "I am no different from any soldier, Your Highness, but the battles I fought, they were necessary. And I survived because I had to, not for glory, but for life itself, and for those who could not fight." The room was silent, the weight of his words settling over everyone present. Even the skeptical courtiers found themselves quiet, staring at the human in awe. He was not just a survivor. He was proof that humanity, underestimated and underestimated often, could endure the impossible. The queen finally spoke, her voice steady but soft. "Your scars, they are a testament, not only of survival, but of courage beyond measure. Humanity, your kind, is stronger than I realized. Perhaps the Empire has underestimated more than one thing." The human straightened. "It is not strength alone, Your Highness. It is persistence, hope, and the will to keep going when everything seems lost. That is what makes us endure." The queen nodded slowly, her gaze thoughtful. "Then you have my trust for now, but the court, the Empire, and the galaxy, they will all be watching. And some will see your scars as weapons, not as stories." He smiled faintly, a shadow of weariness in his eyes. "Then I will continue to fight, not just with my hands, but with my actions, so they understand." Outside, the sky darkened as twin suns set, casting a golden glow over the city. The human stood tall, scars visible, armor set aside, and for the first time in years, he felt the weight of both history and hope. The queen, observing him silently, knew that this human had returned not just as a warrior, but as a symbol, a bridge between humanity and the galaxy that had once doubted them. The first step of his journey back into the Empire was complete. The battles ahead would be many, and the challenges even greater. But in that moment, the human had shown that courage, honesty, and resilience could command respect across worlds. And the galaxy, it seemed, would never underestimate humanity again. The palace was quiet now, but the calm was only skin-deep. Whispers ran through the corridors as courtiers exchanged cautious glances. The human had removed his armor in the throne room, revealing scars that spoke louder than any words could. Some in the court were in awe, while others saw only a threat. Humans were unpredictable, after all, and this one had returned from battles far beyond the Empire's borders. The queen sat in her private chamber thinking. She had seen countless leaders, generals, and warriors from many worlds, yet the human's presence felt different. There was no arrogance in his stance, no desire for glory. His strength came from experience, endurance, and quiet determination. She could sense that he had survived not because he was lucky, but because he was clever, disciplined, and unyielding. "Your Highness!" a voice said softly at the door. It was her trusted aide, an older alien named Carol. The court is unsettled. Some whisper that the human is dangerous, that his return may upset the balance of power. The queen nodded slowly. Perhaps, but I see a different truth. Courage cannot be measured only by fear. This human has proven himself not once but many times. Still, I cannot ignore the unrest. Keep your eyes open, Carol. There are always those who will act on fear or jealousy. Meanwhile, the human moved through the palace corridors with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged nowhere and everywhere at once. His presence alone drew attention. Guards and courtiers stared, some openly curious, others subtly wary. He noticed all of it but remained focused. The palace had rules, and he had learned to navigate them quickly. He was here to serve, not to dominate, but he knew that his very existence challenged the expectations of those around him. He entered a training courtyard, an open space where warriors practiced maneuvers and sparred with holographic simulations. The human removed his cloak and began stretching, his movements precise and controlled. Years of battle had given him speed, endurance, and strength. But there was more: strategy, instincts, and the ability to read opponents before they moved. The human's body carried the memory of every fight he had survived, every narrow escape, and every decision that had meant life or death. A young soldier approached him, curiosity evident in his voice. "Sir, you fought in the outer wars, yes, the ones we only hear about in reports." The human looked at him calmly. "Yes, those reports tell part of the story. The truth is harsher." The soldier swallowed nervously. "Did you fight alone?" The human smiled faintly, a hint of fatigue in his eyes. "Sometimes alone, sometimes with allies who did not survive. Battles are never simple, soldier. Victory is not about strength alone. It is about understanding, timing, and willpower." The young soldier nodded, eyes wide. I hope to be like you someday." "Then remember this," the human said, his voice low but firm. "Courage is not about winning every fight. It is about standing when everyone else falls. It is about making choices, even when the outcome is uncertain. That is what makes a warrior." As the sun shifted in the sky, casting long shadows over the courtyard, the human sensed movement beyond the palace walls. Scouts had returned, bringing news of unusual ships lingering at the edges of the city. They were small, fast, and not aligned with the known factions. Someone was testing the palace's defenses. The human's mind went to work. He could see the likely patterns, predict their approach, and calculate the risks. He did not panic. He did not hesitate. This was familiar ground, even if it was close to the Queen's home. "Prepare the defenses," he said to the captain of the guards. "Deploy drones to the outer perimeter, but keep your focus on strategy. These attackers will think in predictable ways. We will use that against them." The captain hesitated, then nodded. He had heard stories of the human's abilities, but seeing it firsthand was different. The human's calm in the face of danger inspired confidence. Even seasoned warriors found themselves reassured by his presence. Meanwhile, in the palace's observation chambers, the queen watched quietly. The reports from her advisors were careful, measured, and cautious. None of them understood the human the way she was beginning to. His calm, his insight, his ability to see beyond immediate threats, it was unlike anything she had encountered before. "I trust him," she whispered to Carol. "Even in this, I trust him more than anyone else here." Carol looked uneasy. "Your Highness, trust is valuable, yes, but caution is also necessary. There are those in the court who would take advantage if they sensed weakness." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then we watch. But I will not dismiss someone who carries the courage of 100 warriors. This human, he may be what the Empire needs, not what it fears." Back in the courtyard, the human spotted the first of the approaching ships. They moved in tight formation, sleek and designed for speed rather than direct assault. He calculated their path, predicting their maneuvers before they even acted. With careful precision, he guided the palace's defense units, setting traps that exploited every weakness in the attacker's formation. The first engagement was swift. The human dodged energy blasts, countered with strategic strikes, and forced several ships to retreat or crash into the rocky outskirts. His tactics were methodical, efficient, and deadly in their precision, but never reckless. Even when the attackers had the advantage, he adapted, always staying one step ahead. The palace guards watched in awe. They had trained for years, studied strategy, and yet the human made it all seem simple. "How does he see this so clearly?" one muttered under his breath. It is more than seeing, another replied. He understands the battle before it happens. It is instinct and experience. The queen observed through her lenses a mixture of admiration and concern on her face. Humans, she murmured. They survive because they refuse to give up. This one, he is extraordinary. After the skirmish, the human returned to the palace, still alert, still scanning for threats. His armor bore the marks of the brief battle, small scratches and scorch marks, but nothing that could not be repaired. More importantly, the human's mind had already processed the engagement, analyzing weaknesses in the attacker's strategy and considering future moves. Inside, the courtiers whispered even more fervently. The human fights without armor. Did you see the way he commanded the defense? The queen, she trusts him. Some were inspired, others resentful. It was clear that his presence alone was shifting the balance within the court. The queen stood as he approached. You did well, she said, her voice calm but firm. Not just with the attackers, but with how you handled the situation. You inspire not by fear, but by confidence. That is rare, even in my experience. The human bowed slightly. I do what I must, Your Highness. The palace and its people are safe for now, but there are always threats. We must remain vigilant. The queen's gaze softened. You have seen more than anyone here can imagine, and yet you remain human. There is compassion in your actions, even in war. That is what sets you apart. He looked down at his hands, scarred and strong. Survival is one thing, protecting those who cannot defend themselves, that is what matters most. Strength alone means little if it is not used wisely. A silence followed. The queen nodded slowly, clearly contemplating the implications of his words. Then the court must learn that as well. They may see your scars and fear them, but courage and wisdom cannot be hidden behind metal. They are seen through actions, just as you have shown. Later, the human walked alone through the palace gardens, the cool evening air brushing against his skin. He reflected on what had happened, the reactions of the court and the queen's words. There was respect, yes, but also suspicion. Not everyone would understand his nature, nor would they respect it without time. A small creature scurried across the garden path, and he smiled faintly. It reminded him that even in a palace filled with grandeur and politics, life continued. Humanity thrived because it adapted, endured, and found hope in small, quiet ways. That was why he survived. That was why he fought. He paused near a fountain, listening to the soft trickle of water. For a moment, he allowed himself a thought he had rarely entertained in years. Trust. Could he trust this queen? Could he trust the empire that had once doubted him? His scars told him that trust must be earned carefully and slowly. But the queen, perhaps she was different. The night fell, stars appearing in the sky above the palace towers. The human knew this was only the beginning. The outer fleets, rival factions, and hidden enemies would test him, and the queen's court would continue to watch and judge. Yet he felt ready. For the first time in years, he was not running from battles. He was standing in the heart of the empire, ready to face them. And in that moment, he understood that scars were not just reminders of pain. They were proof of survival, proof of resilience, proof that humanity, even in the face of impossible odds, could endure and triumph. The palace was quiet, the city sleeping under the twin moons, but the human's mind remained alert. Challenges were coming, of that he was certain, but for now he had made his presence known. He had shown courage, skill, and wisdom, earning a measure of respect in a court that had once doubted him. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that his journey had only just begun. The morning sunlight poured into the palace halls, casting long shadows across the polished floors. The human moved quietly, each step measured, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of the court. After yesterday's skirmish and his display of skill, whispers still followed him. Some courtiers marveled at his courage, others were unsettled by the power and confidence he carried so effortlessly. Yet he did not seek attention. He only sought purpose. The queen had requested a private audience. The throne room, usually vibrant with ceremonial energy, was unusually still. She sat on her platform, her posture straight, her eyes sharp. This time there was no pretense. She wanted truth, and she would not be satisfied with partial stories or rumors. Sit, she commanded softly, gesturing to a chair before her. I want to hear about your scars, the battles behind them. You removed your armor, yet I only glimpsed the surface. There is more, is there not? The human hesitated. He had rarely shared the full story with anyone. Painful memories of lost comrades, impossible missions, and sacrifices he had been forced to make were etched deep into his mind. But he saw the sincerity in her gaze. For the first time in years, he felt he could speak openly. "My life has been spent fighting where others could not survive," he began. "I have faced beings that think beyond comprehension, weapons that can tear entire fleets apart, and decisions that no one should be forced to make. Every scar on my body tells the story of survival and of choices made when there was no right answer." The Queen leaned forward slightly. "Start from the beginning," she said. "I need to know everything, not just fragments." He took a deep breath, recalling the memories with painful clarity. "It started on the edge of known space. My unit was sent to defend a colony under attack by the Zythurians. They were relentless, intelligent, and cruel. We were outnumbered, and I was the only one to survive. I carry the scars from that battle, the burns, the lacerations, the memories of those who could not escape." The Queen listened silently, her face betraying a flicker of sadness. "I see, and you survived alone?" "Alone, yes," he replied, "but I was not idle. I learned their tactics, their weaknesses. I struck back when I could, saving what civilians I could reach. That battle marked me physically, but more importantly, it marked me mentally. It taught me that survival is more than strength. It is strategy, endurance, and sometimes deception." She nodded slowly. "And the other scars?" He hesitated, then continued. "There were missions that went wrong, betrayals, ambushes, and the weight of command. I was forced to make decisions that cost lives, even when I did everything I could to prevent it. Some of my scars were not caused by enemies, but by mistakes, by the price of survival. Each one reminds me of the cost of victory and the responsibility that comes with it." The Queen's gaze softened. She had seen warriors before, but there was a weight in his eyes, a quiet gravity that spoke of true hardship. "You are not merely a fighter," she said. "You carry experience that none here can truly comprehend, and yet you remain human. You did not let hatred consume you. You did not let bitterness drive you. That is remarkable." The human bowed his head slightly. "I could have turned bitter, Your Highness, many would, but survival without purpose is meaningless. I fight to protect, to endure, and to inspire others to endure with me. That is why I returned here, to show that even in the heart of this empire, humanity has value, courage, and strength that should never be underestimated." A silence filled the throne room. Even the courtiers who had been listening at the edges could feel the weight of his words. Some were moved. Others were unsure, questioning if such a warrior could be trusted, if his strength might one day turn against them. The Queen finally spoke. "Your scars are proof of survival, yes, but also proof of trust. You have shared your truth with me, something few would dare to do. I respect that, human. But know this, your presence here will not go unnoticed. There are those who will see your strength and resent it. Some will plot, some will attempt to challenge you." "I understand," he replied calmly. "I have faced enemies before, both known and hidden. I am prepared to face them here as well. I will not let fear or politics dictate my actions. I act where I must, and I protect where I can." The Queen regarded him silently, her mind turning over the implications. "You have survived beyond expectation," she said at last. "Perhaps it is time to show the court, the empire, and even the galaxy what humanity can endure. Your presence here, it could inspire more than soldiers or civilians. It could reshape how we think about courage, loyalty, and the value of a single life." He nodded. "If it serves the greater good, I am willing, but I do not seek glory, Your Highness. Only understanding, trust, and the chance to continue protecting those who cannot defend themselves." The Queen rose, stepping closer. "Then you will have my support for now, but tread carefully. Politics and fear are stronger than brute force in this palace. Not everyone will see your scars as symbols of courage. Some will see them as weapons, as challenges, or threats to their power." The human stood silently, understanding the weight of her words. In war, he had faced enemies that were direct, violent, and obvious. Here, the threat was subtler. Jealousy, fear, and ambition could be just as dangerous as any alien weapon he had faced. And yet he did not flinch. He had endured worse. In the days that followed, the palace buzzed with quiet tension. Courtiers whispered about the human's bravery and his scars. Some admired him, while others plotted in shadows, unsure of how to handle this anomaly. This human who had survived where others had fallen, and who carried stories etched into his very flesh. The human, meanwhile, focused on learning the intricacies of the palace. He studied the city's defenses, observed court politics, and quietly trained in the courtyard. His presence alone was teaching others discipline, strategy, and the importance of calm in chaos. Soldiers watched him with awe, while scholars noted his sharp intellect and keen perception. One afternoon, while walking through the palace library, he encountered a young court scholar who had been studying human history. "I have read about your battles," the scholar said hesitantly, eyes wide. "They are incredible. The reports cannot capture what you survived." "I survived because I had to," the human replied simply. "Reports rarely tell the truth. They cannot convey the fear, the responsibility, or the choices that must be made. My scars are a record of those moments, a reminder that life is fragile and survival demands more than strength." The scholar nodded slowly. "And yet, you inspire us. Not just soldiers, but all who see you. You show that courage is more than physical might. It is endurance, wisdom, and purpose." The human offered a faint smile. "Then do not underestimate yourselves. Humanity endures not because we are the strongest in body, but because we adapt, learn, and never give up. That is a lesson worth remembering, no matter where you come from." That evening, the human returned to his quarters, reflecting on the day. He had shared more than he intended with the queen, revealing vulnerabilities that most warriors would guard jealously. Yet, he felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in years, he had allowed someone to see him fully, not just as a soldier, but as a survivor, a strategist, and a human being. Outside, the palace gardens shimmered under the twin moons, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of alien blossoms. The human walked among them, feeling the weight of his past and the presence of the future simultaneously. Challenges awaited, certainly, political machinations, jealous courtiers, and enemies both within and beyond the empire. But he was ready. He had faced far greater dangers and survived. As he gazed up at the stars, he knew that his journey here was far from over. The queen had begun to see the truth of his courage, but the court remained uncertain. The empire, vast and complex, was watching. And somewhere in the shadows, those who feared his strength were already plotting. Yet, despite all that, the human felt a quiet confidence. His scars were no longer just reminders of battles fought. They were proof of endurance, wisdom, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. And in a galaxy that often underestimated humans, that spirit could change everything. As night fell over the palace, the human stood on a balcony, looking out at the city lights below. Somewhere in the distance, ships moved silently through the orbiting docks. Somewhere enemies were plotting, but here at the heart of the empire, the human had begun to carve his place. Not with weapons alone, but with courage, wisdom, and the quiet power of truth. And the queen, observing from her private chamber, knew that this human was unlike any other she had encountered. He had survived the impossible, endured the unimaginable, and now stood ready to face the challenges of the empire. Perhaps, she thought, humanity had finally arrived, not as a footnote in history, but as a force that could shape the stars themselves. The palace slept under the light of the twin moons, but the human's mind remained vigilant. Challenges would come, betrayal would test him, and the empire would judge him. But for the first time in years, he felt not just alive, but purposeful. And with purpose came power, the power to endure, to inspire, and to change the galaxy's perception of humanity forever. The palace had been quiet for weeks, but the human knew that calm rarely lasted long in a place like this. Politics simmered beneath the surface, whispers of jealousy and fear echoing through corridors where no one could be truly trusted. He had already sensed tension in the court, but now there was something more, an undercurrent of danger, subtle and deliberate, moving like a shadow through the halls. It began in the early hours of the morning. Scouts reported unusual activity near the city's perimeter. Fast-moving ships had been detected, cloaked in energy signatures meant to evade ordinary sensors. Someone was testing the palace's defenses, probing for weakness. The human did not panic. Years of battles in the outer galaxies had taught him to read patterns, predict enemy movements, and act decisively. He moved quickly to the palace command center, where the captain of the guards was already coordinating the defense. "They're fast but predictable," the human said calmly, studying the holographic displays. "They are looking for an opening. We will give them none. Set traps, deploy drones along the perimeter, and prepare countermeasures. We fight smart, not only hard." The captain nodded, impressed by the clarity of his instructions. Sir, your tactics, they are unlike anything we've trained for. How do you see it so clearly? The human's gaze remained fixed on the displays. Experience, he said simply, and focus. Chaos can be predicted if you pay attention to it. As the first wave of ships approached, the human led the palace's defense from the front lines. He wore no armor this time, relying on his speed, skill, and intuition. The attackers expected the palace to be unprepared, but they underestimated the human. He dodged energy blasts, guided counterattacks, and predicted each maneuver before it was executed. A group of enemy ships tried to flank the palace from above. The human anticipated the move, drawing them into a trap where automated defense turrets and palace drones forced them into narrow passages. One by one, the ships were disabled, forced to retreat or crash harmlessly outside the city limits. Even the seasoned palace guards were in awe. "I have never seen such precision," one whispered to another. "Without armor, he fights like a force of nature." Inside the palace, the queen watched through the observation lenses, her face tense but resolute. She had seen courage before, but the human's calm, methodical approach in the face of danger was extraordinary. He did not panic, he did not hesitate, and he did not seek glory. Every movement, every decision was calculated to protect the palace and its people. But while the battle raged outside, a more insidious threat emerged within. One of the queen's trusted advisors, a man named Varin, had been plotting in secret. Varin had always resented the attention the human commanded, and he saw the recent display of skill as a challenge to his own influence. He had been secretly communicating with enemy factions, hoping to weaken the palace and seize power for himself. Varin moved swiftly through the halls, activating security overrides to allow a small contingent of enemy infiltrators into the palace. They were armed and trained, intending to capture the human and disrupt the palace defenses. The human sensed the intrusion immediately. His instincts, honed through countless battles, warned him of unnatural movement patterns, unfamiliar energy signatures, and subtle anomalies in the palace's systems. Without hesitation, he moved through the corridors, ready to confront the intruders. He encountered them in the grand hall, where the attackers tried to ambush him. But the human was faster than they anticipated. He dodged, rolled, and countered, using the environment to his advantage. Pillars, staircases, and energy conduits became weapons and shields in his hands. Each move was precise, calculated, and efficient. Within moments, the intruders were incapacitated, leaving only Varin standing among the chaos. The human faced Varin, his eyes sharp. "You have betrayed your queen," he said calmly. "Why?" Varin sneered, his arrogance evident. "You do not belong here. The Empire does not need humans. It needs leaders, not soldiers covered in scars. You are a reminder of weakness disguised as strength." The human shook his head. "No, you are blind. Strength is not in status or titles. Strength is in courage and endurance in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That is what I am, and that is what you have failed to understand." Varin lunged, but the human was ready. He sidestepped, disarming the advisor with a precise strike that left Varin on the floor, defeated but alive. The human did not kill. He never killed unnecessarily. His battles were fought to protect, not to indulge vengeance. The queen entered the hall as the last of the intruders were subdued. Her eyes widened as she saw the human standing among the defeated attackers, scars visible, unarmored, commanding presence undeniable. "So this is how you protect the palace," she said softly, a mixture of awe and relief in her voice. The human nodded. "It is not just about fighting. It is about understanding the enemy, predicting their moves, and acting decisively. Strength alone is not enough. Wisdom and strategy are just as important." The queen studied him, her respect for the human growing. "You have done more than defend these walls," she said. "You have shown the court and the empire the meaning of true courage." As the palace stabilized, the human moved to secure Varin, ensuring that the traitor could not escape or continue plotting. The queen's guards were quick to assist, and Varin was placed under confinement. The court whispered, astonished by the human's ability to handle both the external attack and internal betrayal with calm efficiency. That evening, the human walked through the palace gardens, the twin moons reflecting in the water of the fountains. He felt the weight of the day's events, the attacks, the betrayal, and the subtle tension still lingering in the court. But he did not falter. He had faced far worse in his life, and he knew that every challenge was an opportunity to show strength, intelligence, and humanity. The queen joined him in the gardens, her expression thoughtful. "You have done more than survive battles and attacks," she said quietly. "You have inspired loyalty, earned respect, and reminded us all that courage is more than physical strength. It is integrity, intelligence, and heart." The human nodded. "I only do what I must, protecting life, enduring hardship, and acting with purpose. That is the measure of strength. Titles, armor, and status mean nothing if one cannot act when it matters most." The queen looked at him, her gaze steady. "The Empire has underestimated humans for too long. You have shown that our judgment was wrong. I wonder, what more could your kind achieve if given the chance?" He looked to the sky, his mind already considering the future. "Humans endure because we adapt, learn, and never give up. If the Empire is willing to recognize that, perhaps we can accomplish far more than anyone expects." The night was calm, but the human knew it was temporary. The palace had been tested, and he had proven its defenses, but challenges would continue. Rival factions, jealous courtiers, and external enemies would all seek to exploit weaknesses. Yet he was ready. He had faced death countless times and survived, not just because of skill, but because of understanding, endurance, and determination. As he stood in the garden, the queen beside him, he allowed himself a rare thought of hope. Perhaps this empire could change, could recognize the value of courage over fear and wisdom over arrogance. Perhaps humanity could finally be seen not as a footnote in galactic history, but as a force capable of shaping the stars. The palace slept under the moons, but the human remained vigilant. His mind raced with strategies, contingency plans, and the quiet understanding that this was only the beginning. More battles would come, more enemies would test him, and the court would continue to judge him. Yet for the first time in years, he felt not just alive, but purposeful. And with that purpose came power, the power to endure, to inspire, and to reshape the perception of humanity across the galaxy. The palace had returned to a fragile calm. The threat from the outer ships had been neutralized, and Varin, the traitorous advisor, was confined. Yet the human knew that calm was only temporary. In a court filled with ambition, jealousy, and fear, challenges never ceased. Every step he took, every action he made was being watched and judged. He walked through the throne room, observing the courtiers as they whispered amongst themselves. Some spoke of his courage, some of his scars, and some of his power. Yet most remained uncertain. Humans were unpredictable, and a warrior like him, unarmored and unflinching, disrupted the established order. The queen entered, her expression steady but thoughtful. "You have proven yourself beyond expectation," she said, "not just in battle, but in wisdom and restraint. The court watches you, and through you they will begin to understand the strength humanity carries." The human bowed slightly. "I seek no recognition, Your Highness, only the chance to protect, to endure, and to act with purpose. The Empire needs unity, not fear. My actions are meant to show what is possible, not to dominate or intimidate." The queen nodded. "And yet, by simply being who you are, you inspire loyalty and respect. That is a rare gift. Few can lead by example alone." In the days that followed, the palace adjusted to his presence. Soldiers trained under his guidance, learning not only combat skills, but strategy, discipline, and observation. Scholars watched him, fascinated by his understanding of tactics and logic. Even the courtiers who had been skeptical began to recognize the value he brought, not just as a fighter, but as a thinker, a protector, and a symbol. One afternoon, the queen requested a council meeting, inviting leaders from across the empire. The room was tense, filled with nobles and generals who had long doubted the human. Their eyes widened as he entered, unarmored, scars visible, posture calm and confident. Whispers ran through the room. He fought alone, survived, unarmored. Can he truly lead? The queen began the meeting. "We have faced threats both outside and within. Today we must consider the lessons learned and the future of the empire. The human before you has demonstrated courage, strategy, and loyalty. He carries experience and insight that none here can match." The human spoke, his voice calm but firm. "I do not seek power, nor titles, nor glory. I am here to serve the empire by showing that courage, strategy, and endurance are more valuable than fear and mistrust. Every life protected, every threat neutralized, strengthens us all. That is the measure of true strength." A senior general rose, skeptical. "And you expect us to follow you because of scars and words?" The human looked him in the eye. "Not because of scars, nor words, nor reputation. Follow me because of what I do, because I act when action is needed, and because I fight not for myself, but for the greater good." There was a moment of silence. The human's calm conviction and clarity of purpose resonated with many, while others hesitated, unsure how to respond. Slowly, one by one, heads nodded, grudging respect forming. Courage, after all, could not be ignored, even by the most skeptical. After the council, the queen approached him in private. "You have done more than survive. You have shifted perceptions, inspired loyalty, and strengthened the empire. Humans have always been underestimated, but through you, that mistake is clear. Perhaps we can finally begin to value the potential your kind carries." The human nodded, his gaze steady. "It is not only about humans. Every being can contribute if given the chance. Strength, wisdom, and courage are not confined to one species. But yes, humanity has endured, and we continue to prove ourselves capable of the impossible." Word of his deeds spread quickly throughout the empire. Soldiers shared stories of his tactics, scholars analyzed his strategies, and citizens whispered tales of the unarmored human who had defended the palace against impossible odds. His scars became symbols, not of pain, but of resilience, endurance, and unwavering purpose. Even those who had once doubted him began to see the truth. Humans were not weak or reckless. They were adaptable, intelligent, and capable of extraordinary feats when circumstances demanded it. The human's presence had not only protected the palace, but changed how an entire empire viewed an underestimated species. One evening, the human walked through the palace gardens with the queen. The twin moons reflected in the water, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of alien blossoms. He felt the weight of recent events, the battles, the betrayal, and the cautious respect he had earned. But more than that, he felt a sense of purpose, a quiet confidence that humanity's resilience could shape the galaxy. "You have changed much in a short time," the queen said, her voice calm but impressed. "Not by force, but by example. You have shown that courage, wisdom, and endurance matter more than fear, titles, or appearances. That is a rare quality in any being." The human looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "I only do what is necessary. Survival is important, but so is the way we live, the choices we make, and the example we set. Courage must be visible so others know it is possible. Endurance must be seen so others understand they can endure as well. That is how humanity survives and thrives." The queen smiled faintly. "Perhaps, through you, the empire will begin to see humans not as outsiders, but as equals capable of shaping the galaxy alongside us. You have earned my trust and my respect. That is no small achievement." As the nights passed, the human continued to train, plan, and observe. The palace, once tense with uncertainty, began to adapt. Soldiers learned new tactics, inspired by his skill and patience. Scholars debated strategies he had demonstrated. Citizens began to hear the stories of the unarmored human who faced impossible odds and survived, teaching them that fear could be overcome and courage could be nurtured. Even political rivals began to change their attitudes. Some grudgingly acknowledged his skill and wisdom. Others, still jealous, waited for an opportunity to challenge him. But the human was ready. He had faced death countless times, survived betrayal, and endured hardships that had hardened his mind without breaking his spirit. He understood that true strength lay in patience, planning, and the ability to inspire others through action rather than words. One morning, the queen called him to the throne room. "The empire is watching," she said. "Your actions have demonstrated humanity's value. Your courage and wisdom are now recognized by many, but more is required. We must prepare for future challenges, for threats beyond these walls will continue to test us. I need you to help lead, not as a conqueror, but as a guide, strategist, and symbol." The human bowed. "I will serve your highness. Not for glory, not for titles, but to protect life, to endure challenges, and to show what is possible when courage and intelligence guide action. That is how humans survive, and how they can inspire others to endure as well." The queen regarded him silently, then nodded. "Then we will work together. Humanity and the empire will face the future side by side, learning from one another, growing stronger together. Your presence has changed much, human. Perhaps it will change everything." The human looked out over the palace gardens, the twin moons casting silver light over the fountains and trees. The city sprawled below, its lights reflecting in the water. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, enemies still lurked. Challenges would come. Political rivals would continue to test him. But he was ready. He had survived impossible battles before, and he would survive those ahead, not only through skill, but through understanding, endurance, and the quiet power of courage. In that moment, he understood something deeper. Scars, once symbols of pain and loss, had become symbols of resilience. Battles, once memories of hardship, had become lessons in strategy, endurance, and leadership. Humanity, underestimated for so long, had begun to prove its worth, not through arrogance, but through action, integrity, and perseverance. The palace was quiet under the light of the moons, but the empire was watching. The unarmored human, scars visible and presence commanding, stood ready. His courage, wisdom, and endurance had inspired loyalty, reshaped perceptions, and proven that humanity was capable of extraordinary feats. And the Queen, observing him silently, knew that the galaxy had only begun to understand what humans could achieve. Through him, they had seen strength, intelligence, and heart combined in ways few could imagine. The human's journey was far from over. Challenges awaited, dangers would arise, and the Empire would continue to test him. But he was not afraid. He had survived, endured, and proven that courage and purpose mattered more than fear or doubt. And so, standing tall in the moonlit palace gardens, the human, scarred, unarmored, and unyielding, prepared for the future. The Empire had seen his strength, the court had witnessed his wisdom, and the galaxy had begun to recognize the potential of humanity. He was a survivor, a strategist, a protector, and a symbol. And in the heart of the Empire, that symbol would endure. For humanity had arrived, and it would not be underestimated again.